Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are coming to you from the beautiful city of Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Dennis Jar, and with me I have my co-host,
Danielle Knuckles.
All right, Danielle, say brief something about yourself before we begin. Danielle is making her debut on Focus on Liberia tonight as my co-host.
Yes.
Welcome to Focus on Liberia, Danielle.
Thank you, Dennis. I've been here in Atlanta for about 5 years. Was involved in the Liberian Community Association here for 2 years as the acting secretary. I'm passionate about Liberia and helping in any way that I can. So I'm happy to be here today to join in the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And to our guests across the world, our guest tonight is Mr. Mansfield Duopu. He'll be joining us on the phone from the city of Minnesota. Mr. Duopu, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Dennis, and members of your crew. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, and Mr. Duopu is calling from Minnesota. Our topic tonight is we are discussing Liberians that returning home to Liberia. Most of the time, or since the 1980s, whenever there is a change of government, you have some Liberians going home to work or do business. Even when there is no change of government, we find Liberians going home to work. So one of those people is Mr. Mansfield Duopu, and it is the dream of most Liberians in the United States and other places to return home, either for business or for work. So Mr. Duopu is one of those who has returned home after the new government had taken seat. And that's what we are here to discuss. What really drives people to go back to Liberia, how they prepare, and we're going to be getting his perspective on the new government, what made him to leave, and the rest of it. So, Mr. Duopu, let's start by introducing you. Mr. Duopu has been in the United States for some time now. He recently returned home to Liberia. He has experience in foreign service and also community activism. Mr. Duopu, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be part of your program.
Okay, Mr. Duopu, my first question for you is, how long had you been residing in the U.S. before you returned to Liberia?
Well, I've been here a better part of 18 years now, but I've gone to Liberia a couple of times. You know, I was there for a lengthy period of time between 2008 and 2011, working for the Governance Commission. So I've made several trips back to Liberia since I came to the U.S. Something like 18 years ago. So, you know, that has been my situation.
Okay.
Okay, so what made you decide to return to Liberia now?
Well, as you might not be aware, I'm a member of the Congress for Democratic Change, the CDC, and I've been an active member. I've been involved in the party since its founding, and the CDC itself was founded in Minnesota. I've been a part of it, and when the CDC gained the electoral victory, I thought it was an obligation for me to make the trip to Liberia to witness the inauguration of our standard bearer. So that was the reason why I went to Liberia, and among other things, to see family and friends and to see, you know, my business interests, my business ventures, to see how they were doing. So it was, you know, a trip that was bagged with many goodies in it. So that was the reason why I went there, and I was very privileged to have met the president after his inauguration, and I was honored to have seen, you know, Liberians in a very jolly mood for the new political dispensation. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. And so in preparation for this interview, Mr. Duopu, I must admit that I Facebook stalked you. And I see you have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful daughters. Is there any plan for your family to move to Liberia with you?
Well, not in the immediate, you know, future, but, you know, I've always told my children about where I come from. I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm very proud of my culture. I'm very proud of my country. My children know where I stand when it comes to that. And I think they understand, where I come from and my own political ambition, my political philosophy. So, I'm sure in the future, it would not be based on any compulsion, but maybe in the future they will visit it. I have 3 daughters. 2 have visited there when they were much smaller. I think they were like 2, 3-year-olds. They visited there. So I'm planning to take my kids there in the coming future. I'm planning it maybe 2, 3 years down the road, but it's something that they know I'm planning, and hopefully they all will agree to go with me.
Okay. I hope they do go with you.
Oh, definitely. I'll be honored.
So what was the preparation like returning home? I'm not sure if you're returning home for good or you're going to come back or how many years, but what was the preparation like?
Well, it took some cash. It took some money. You have to be prepared monetarily. It has a financial toll too. So, but, in fact, my wife and I went together. Because she's also a political animal like myself, and she's also a member of the CDC. So we went together, and it was kind of taxing, the fact that both of us were out and our kids were here, and so she had to return, to take care of family matters. But I stayed, and it took me almost 4 months, to be there and get, situated and, get acclimatized.
Okay. So you said that you had been to Liberia several times, before this decision to move there. So what was your assessment of Liberia each time you went?
Well, the assessment is that the people have always been motivated. The people, have a high sense of nationalism. The people, despite, their situation when it comes to poverty, when it comes to, gap inequality, economic inequalities, when it comes to the lack of social amenities, they are hopeful. They are very positive people, and they believe that in due time, a leader would have arrived on the political scene, who understands their plight, who have lived what they are living. And George Weah represents that leader, and they are happy that he has arrived, and he has started to make some inroads in his policy pronouncements, in his quest to make sure that the people, their situation is improved through the pro agenda. So I think the president is on the right footing, despite some missteps that we must admit, because there's a new political dispensation, and he has to, grapple with the new realities. So I think the people are very hopeful, and they're looking forward to a brighter Liberia, where our people will form part of will benefit from their natural resources, will be involved in the developmental agenda of the country. So our people are very hopeful, and I feel that sense of optimism every time I talk to the people in every walks of life. So they are very hopeful.
You've been going, or as you said, Mr. Duopu, and now you went back. Has anything changed, for better or for worse?
Well, things are on a trajectory. We can't measure better or for worse right now. Life is always in a state of flux. Things happen and people have to adjust. But I think there's a new momentum in the country, for better. People are enthusiastic about the future now. Now that they have a president who is interested in their well-being. So, I think, we can measure it by dollars and cents right now. We can measure it by optimism and hope. So I think things are moving in the right direction.
Okay. Do you have a job now with the new government?
Well, I've secured something. I've secured a job. With a government parastatal. So, that's a good thing. I will start that job the first week of July. That was the main reason why I made this trip back to the U.S. to see my wife and kids, to bond with them for a little while, to make sure that they understand that I'll be in and out. So yeah, I've secured something with a government parastatal.
Can you disclose what position it is?
Well, it's still in the works. It has to be concretized when I get back. In terms of what it will entail. But it's a very good it's a very good gig. Like the Americans would say, it's a very good gig. So I'm happy about that. I can make a positive contribution to the nation building process. It's not all about the monetary reward, but the intrinsic values that will generate. So I'm happy about that.
Okay. I believe you said earlier you worked with the Governor's Commission. Was that in the U.S., in Minnesota?
No, the Governor's Commission is in Liberia.
Okay.
I worked at the Governor's Commission as a national consultant. I was involved in the development of most of the public policies that were the post-Taylor public policies that were enunciated by President Salih. So that was through a UNDP project. And I was happy to have worked on those initiatives.
Mr. Mansfield Duopu, congratulations on your new job. I'm curious because they are...
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's not a big thing, a presidential thing, but, we're putting your foot in the door.
All right. And there are others who are interested in also, for such opportunity. What is the process like in getting your job with the new government?
Well, it depends on the individual. It depends on your, it's a variety of things that is dependent on, like any place for that matter, like any new government, in the U.S., France, or wherever, if a government comes into place, there are people who, are part of the inner cycle. There are people who are outside the inner cycle. There are people who, have different connections. But for me, personally, based on, based on what I bring to the table, people have, different ways of gaining jobs. People were promised, people were in the campaign, they secured their positions from the campaign. Some people were brought on board because of the president's, his gesture to include people who were part of other parties, his overtures to those people. Other people got the job based on, different reasons, different things they had, So I can speak to anybody's situation. I can only speak to, myself, because that would be, I'm foolhardy to do that. I can speak to any specific situation that this person got his job based on X, Y, Z. I'm not a appointed authority, so, I will just leave it at that.
All right. Now, and again, we say thank you so much for the opportunity to for having that time to go back and contribute. How long are you there for? What we've seen over the years is maybe after you are out of, what are the future plans? Are you returning if the job is no longer there, or what are your plans?
Yeah, I'm gradually transitioning to Liberia. To just state it, emphatically, I've stayed, more than 18 years in the United States. I've gained, a measure of education, training, and some experience here. I think it's only wise that I return, to my country to contribute. I have a big political future there. I want to go there and make some sacrifice. I want to go there and live with the people and work with them. You can't be, in the diaspora and make any inroads in our country or wherever, country you come from. So, I discussed that with my family that, I'm in this transitional mode now and, we'll work it out, I know it's difficult, leaving your wife and kids, in the U.S. here and going to Liberia. But I think, to whom much is given, much is due. So, if I want to be a major political player, I think it's only wise enough that I be there and give my, my best, so people can know that I'm not just, a fly-by-night, political actor. I'm there, for the long haul. So the transition have started. I just packed few clothes recently, I've returned back with empty suitcases, hoping that I can, secure more, wearings and stuff that I can use, things are on a good course. So I'm transitioning back. It's gradual, but it's intentional.
Good. If you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Dennis, along with my co-host Danielle. We are discussing with Mr. Mansfield Duopu. He has recently returned to Liberia and beginning to work with the CDC-led government. And we are here speaking with Mr. Duopu so that we can get a sense of what preparation is required, his own assessment of what's going on the grounds, and also what others can learn from his decision to return.
So, Mr. Duopu, can you please explain how your past experiences can help you in whatever future role it is you're about to obtain?
Well, before coming to the U.S., I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My last position was desk officer in the office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I was involved in, crafting foreign policy documents, involved in diplomatic engagements and all that. Then I got back there. I worked at the Governance Commission, for almost 3.5, 4 years, as a national consultant dealing with policy issues. So I think those experiences and those, trainings and stuff, have informed my own thinking about the future of that country. So, going back there, I'm not going to those areas right now, but maybe in the future. I think wherever, I find myself, I can bring those experiences to bear and to help, the rebuilding process of our country. So I'm not too, keen on a particular job per se. I think that what I've started is in a good place. And maybe in the future, I can bring my experiences and my training to whatever position I'll be called to do.
Okay.
So returning home into Liberia now, what did you find shocking after your stay in the U.S., or what did you find exciting getting home to Liberia?
Well, let's look at the exciting part. Like I said earlier, the people are excited. The people are motivated. There's poverty. There's, economic, situations are unbearable. But when you look in the eyes of an average Liberian man or woman, you see optimism. You see hope. You see, a future that is bright on the horizon. And they, are blessed to have a president who, engenders that optimism. So you need a leader who can really, excite the people, who can, move them to a new place to see themselves as nation builders, not just, people who will just sit on the sideline and be, spectators in their own country. So, and the shocking part, you find that people, we still have, a lot of things to accomplish as a people. We still have dirt in the streets. We still have, poverty. We still have, unemployment very high. We still have children loitering in the streets, without any parental guidance. We still have those social malaise. So we're working. I'm sure the government is doing everything to work on those things. Those are social problems that take a very long time to deal with. Even in the United States and other Western countries, they are dealing with their own social problems too. So it's not, peculiar to Liberia. So those are the issues those are situations that the new government, needs to confront.
So you mentioned all of the issues that Liberia is facing. So can you tell us exactly what is the agenda of the president, or at least, for the next year, what is on the agenda, the immediate agenda?
Well, I think the immediate agenda is fixing the economy. Because the economy is shut up. The economy is practically non-existent. You have a country with, economic problems that are rife. You have unemployment. You have, social dislocation. People are still finding their bearings. You have people still working for less than $1 a day, living on less than $1 a day for a family. So these are challenges that the president, is confronting right now. And his whole agenda that has been, capsulated in what is called the pro-poor agenda is about poverty alleviation. When we talk about pro-poor agenda, it doesn't mean that the president wants to keep people in poverty. No, it's about alleviating poverty. It's about closing the income gap. It's about closing the economic disparity between the haves and the majority have-nots. So those are the kind of things. You see now the president is involved in bringing a lot of direct foreign investment, securing a lot of loans to build the roads, places that were desolate and far-flung, to bring the people in the mainstream economy through agriculture, through the road network because our economy is agrarian. It's based on, our economy is agrarian, it's based on agriculture. So we can link those counters, make the people to produce their food, bring it to the market and have access. I mean, those are bold steps that he's making. And those steps should be commended by, all patriotic Liberians.
Mr. Duopu, one criticism of Liberians against those leaving the United States to return home to work has been they get handsomely paid and they use that money to pay their mortgages and support their families in the United States. There's nothing wrong with, working, earning a living and supporting your family, but not to be so intrusive. How do you plan to sustain your family while you are there in Liberia?
Well, that's a very incisive question. Well, when I work, I expect to get paid. And it's based on that pay, I will have to take care of my obligations to my family. You talk about people sending money from Liberia to the U.S. We live in a global economy. The amount of money that is remitted from the U.S. to Liberia, the volume of that money is negligible. The amount of money coming from Liberia to the U.S. is negligible as compared to the money coming from the U.S. to Liberia. How many people actually work in Liberia who send money as opposed to people who live and work in the U.S. who take care of hundreds of people in Liberia. So people say that, that is kind of simplistic, because people work in other countries, their family live in other countries. We live in a global economy where money moves from one place to another with just the click of a mouse. So I don't think there should be any problem with people sending money to their relatives or loved ones. People send money for any amount of reason. So if you expect me to work in Liberia and not take care of my wife and my kids here, that's preposterous.
All right, that's fair.
Okay, Mr. Duopu, when we talk about moving, I think about my first time moving out on my own. I was here in Atlanta in college, and I was able to research several apartment complexes and figure out if it was close enough to campus and how it would affect my commute to school. And so, what is the process of finding a place in Liberia? Is there an apartments.com where you can find an apartment, or did you have land already that you're able to build on? What was that process of finding a home?
Well, unlike, the United States or Atlanta, where you specifically talk about, we live in a communal, setting in Liberia. I think Dennis can attest to that. We live, our own political or socio-economic system is communalism, where you have, your father has a house and you live there with your siblings, your wife, their wives, and, it's like a big, village, So, but some of us who were blessed to, have some investment there, we were blessed to have a home there, and though it's not, to the extent I would like to have it, but I have it's very modest, but it's accommodating. So it's not a bad start, I know people worry about where will I live, those are very important questions that one needs to answer before making the trip back, because you don't want to go there and face a situation where people will, you'll be disappointed by, people who you trust or people who you believe will host you. But it depends on the individual. Once you're a good person, you have good friends, you have good relatives who you've been good to, I don't think that should be a problem. It's based on reciprocity. You're good to me, I'm good to you. It's just simple as life is, So, but for me, in my situation, I have a very decent place that I live, in the suburbs. I have a car, commute bar, so things are going well. The other people who struggle, I must admit, we're finding transportation, we're finding housing, but, over time, those things, you get used to it. You get used to, getting up early and going, Liberia is not as affluent as, the United States. But, people find their way, the country is being rebuilt and we are getting there little by little. The government now is involving, the transportation, public transportation, secure more buses, fixing the roads. Especially the roads are very, dilapidated. Once the roads can be fixed, people can commute easily. But because of the roads, there's a lot of traffic. People find it hard to get from one part of the city to the other. So once you can get those things in place, and the country will move forward. So we all got to. It should be all hands on deck, to make sure that that country is the only place we have. So we have to make sure that the country and the government, the government succeeds, and the country also succeeds.
All right, Mr. Duopu. For me personally, I was in Liberia last year for the first time after 21 years. And in fact, 2 weeks was not enough for me to assess what was going on. It was just Monrovia. I never had the privilege to go to Sino where I was born. But and then you live here. So people like me and those watching the show will want to get a complete, accurate assessment of the situation from you, being someone that we can trust. In spite of you being a member of the government or the CDC, we will still expect that based on your professionalism to give us a clear picture of how things are. So if you don't mind, we want to do a quick assessment of various areas in Liberia. Let's start with our educational system. How is it?
Well, to admit, our educational system is flattened. We have tons of jobs to do in that sector. But recently, there was an educational summit that was hosted by the Ministry of Education. The president did attend that summit, and he committed the government's resources to the education ministry, the educational sector. They're working on a framework now for the future of Liberia's education. I think that our educational system needs to be improved. From the basic childhood education to secondary, primary, secondary, and even tertiary education. It will take a concerted effort. It will take international partners to come. It will take government's resolve. I think the government is resolved to making sure that every child learns, because that's the future of the country. If you have a literate society, you will have a secure society, you have a democratic society, you have a peaceful society. Or if you have an illiterate society, the country will be prone to chaos and insurrection and political, dislocation. So I think President Weah is committed to that, and he doing that summit. He talked about his own, personal, lack as a young person growing up in the slums of Monrovia, who didn't have, the wherewithal to go to, the pristine schools that some all were privileged to have gone to, Catholic schools or other private schools. But he based on his own personal experience, that he could have told that story. It moved the people who attended that convention, and he is committed to making sure that every child, is afforded the opportunity to learn. That is a key, political mantra that the government has set. And the Ministry of Education is working on that policy right now, and they will be coming up with the findings in a couple of weeks, I was told. So that will be, the basis on which we can move forward, because we have a serious problem in that area.
Yeah, and Mr. Duopu, they say if you want to see where someone's priorities lie, look at their budget. If you look at our budget, I think the money for education is not that encouraging. In fact, it was reduced. So looking at that, where is the president's priority when it comes to education?
I think you're looking at the old budget I submitted, because there was a period where the budget, I think coming to July, the budget will be recast, because the recasting because a budget is a political statement, you know? Yeah. It is a political statement. Like you rightly stated, it shows the priority of a country or a government. So, but I'm sure the Minister of Finance spoke about that, you know, in several, meetings or interviews, that the budget will be recasted. When you recast the budget, you put money, you reprioritize. You take money that were hanging, that were loose, and after, making sure that government, the ghost list and people who were not on government payroll, have been, canceled out. That the money from, those ghost lists can be, reprioritized for education. So I think education has the largest budget. When you look at the national budget, education, health, I think they have the largest budget. But, the country is reeling from, years of political, social, and economic lack. The last 12 years were not very impressive. Although the country received more than 16 billion from the international community, there's nothing relevant to show. There's nothing relevant to show after getting 16 billion in 12 years. So let's see if they can give that 16 billion to Mr. Weah in maybe his 6 or 12 years of, leadership, and see what become of that. So let's wait and see, but right now the president is making sure that, he's putting some priority in the sector of education. So let's wait and see. The food will be in in what transpires in the next couple of, months and maybe a year from now.
Okay.
What can you tell us about the food prices and just prices of basic commodities like gas and things like that?
Yeah, commodities, prices, they're always, fluid, they're always a pendulum, it depends on the supply chain. It depends on supply and demand. Gas price, as you are aware, gas is purchased in where? The Middle East. And there's conflict in the Middle East. So, ships going there, tankers going into areas, then they have more, in terms of insurance, you have to pay more. So, if you having, even in the U.S., I just noticed that there was an uptick in the price of gas. And so, gas price is not very high in Liberia as compared to other, sub-regional countries. Like Nigeria that produces gas. The price of gas is very high in Nigeria than Liberia. I know we're paying a low, hefty price in gas in Liberia, but the price of gas in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Ivory Coast is very high compared to Liberia. So, people just, kind of uncomfortable because when the gas price goes up, it affects transportation, it affects every other thing, it affects the food supply and all that stuff, And, coming to, food, we have food, but like I said earlier, it has to be brought to the market because the roads are bad. They are in a very, deprecate state. Farmers and people who go purchase their food from the rural areas, villages and stuff, they find it difficult to bring up that food to Monrovia or places where, urban areas. So it makes it difficult, especially, during the rainy season. The roads are, impassable, unpliable. So it makes it hard. So, but, like the government have started this major road project, I'm sure that, we can find solace in reducing the negative externalities of the price of gas, the price of, local commodities. So we're making progress, and let's give this government that has been in power for just 4 months some chance. Let give the government some breathing room so they can find that footing.
So Mr. Duopu, talking about prices, I know the government has taken some steps in combating prices. For instance, when the president first took office, he called the Lebanese community to reduce the price of rice. A few weeks or months ago, there was a mandate for the government or its bureau to reduce tariff. many people are saying these are just superficial solutions that don't go far enough.
Well, to reduce tariff, I think it's a very good economic policy because, I mean, I heard people saying that the president will violate the Constitution by not going to the legislature to reduce tariff because the legislature, imposes taxes. No, tariff is within the domain. Reducing the tariff is in the domain of the president. The president is involved in the executive function of the government. That is not, a violation of the Constitution. So by reducing tariff on basic commodities, things that people need every day, that will, create more, space for other people to import those things, to create those, to make sure those things are in abundance. Because if you impose high tariffs on basic commodities, the person who that affects is the guy who, the end user of that. Say oil, vegetable oil, or chicken feed or pig feed. People are making a mockery of chicken feed. But you look in the Liberian, regular Liberian family menu, there has to be chicken feed. People eat that. I mean, you can make mockery of what people eat. That was disingenuous on the part of many people, who were saying, oh, the president reduced tariff on chicken feed and not on these other commodities. Well, you have to understand the dynamics of the market, and market forces will always determine, these things. So the president is listening to the people. He's aware of the plight, and he's doing everything to make sure that these tariffs are reduced and they conform to the realities of the day. So that's the reason why I'm sure that he's interested in reducing tariffs.
Right,
so,
Mr. Duopu, what are some of the concrete steps? Because if you in an economy where the leakages are greater than the injections, talking about import and export, you will expect, things to prices like that to be high. Tariff is just a very minute portion of it. Will you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's why the president is also making sure that salaries reflect the realities of the day, that people will not make exorbitant salaries that, they cannot account for. That's why he placed, a ceiling on what government officials can make, to reflect the reality of the day. And now he's making sure that people who, are making, very low salaries are brought, their salaries they come, to a livable wage. So that those are the economic steps that he's taking, and making sure that our foreign currency, our foreign exchange, making sure that people use the banking system rather than hoarding money and putting money in suitcases and absconding with that money out of the country. So those economic crimes have been fully investigated and prosecuted under the law. So we have a kind of stringent economic policy. We have tariff being reduced. You have measures put in place that to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse. But those are ways that you can save money. Those are ways that you can reallocate money and put in education and health. Making sure that you build, infrastructure for the people to have a better life. That's the main reason why the president is so determined to have this road project to link, the countries that have been cut off for over 170 years. Can you imagine that when you come from Sino country, when it rains, you don't have no access to coming to even Buchanan or Riverside to transact business? That is criminal. That is unethical. For any government to just look at a large portion of the country being cut off and do nothing about it. And when this president is doing something about it, people will say things like he's violating the Constitution, he's seeking too much loans. How do you build a country without seeking, financial assistance? Even the U.S. borrows every time to build things. The United States government borrows. If people don't know, American government does borrow. Borrow is part of international transaction. You're able to pay, your capacity to pay. That makes you a sovereign national government. And the government is committed to pay. So when you borrow the money, you make sure the infrastructures are built. You make sure there's a return on your investment. The rate of return. They make sure that people can see the tangible results. Those are very important national decisions that a bold president or a bold government can make. So borrowing in itself is not a bad thing. But we borrow over years. People are skeptical of the borrowing because they know that our government have borrowed billions of dollars. They have not seen the value of that borrowing, and their kids and grandkids are going to pay that money. But this person is making sure that there's a concerted effort that money that is being borrowed will be used for the intended purpose, and there will be propriety, there will be probity, there will be international, guidance, there will be, due diligence on the process.
Right, and we'll come to that loan issue in a little bit.
Mr. Duopu, you mentioned the government's encouragement to use the Liberian dollar, and I applaud that. We've seen how it's been effective in countries like Barbados, where now their rate is about 2 to 1 US dollar. Can you tell us what the rate was before you left?
Well, the rate fluctuates. I can be certain what the rate was when I left. The rate depends on where you live. The rate depends. There can be a rate in somewhere called red light, and different from the rate of exchange in Douala market. It depends on the transaction. It depends on the day. It depends on the movement of money. It's a whole host of things. It's dependent on. I can't put my finger on a specific rate that I left in Liberia. I'll be lying to you. But the rate does fluctuate. It depends on supply and demand. The more we can open our economy, the more the foreign direct investment. And you should know that because of the UNMIL just departed Liberia. That put a big dent in our monetary policy, in our fiscal policy also, because UNMIL left, because that stream of cash, that foreign exchange, paying the workers who either came as international staff or local staff, most of the people lost their job. So that's a big chunk of cash that left the economy. You should also know that there were a lot of other international organizations that left. Then they've given Liberia the green light that Liberia is on its way to the recovery and all that stuff. People left. And because, people thought that, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was the darling of the West, she's not president anymore. Other people, thought they should leave, because the darling is not there anymore. And this new guy, they have to, gauge him and see, when he's taking the country. So it will take time for that money to come back. And that UNMIL, withdrawal cost a big financial loss to the country. We're not wishing that they be there, but, and if they can leave the money there and just leave, they can send the money there and those soldiers or, surveillance staff leave, that'll be fine. Let the money circulate, let the country benefit from, that kind of, huge chunk of cash.
All right, let's talk about the issue of homelessness and drug use. You were there and you saw a lot of people, using drugs and homelessness. How is it now? And what is the government doing?
Well, drug is an international crisis. Drug and the drug crisis is not peculiar to one country. So you can say Liberia. There are a lot of countries that have serious drug crisis. And Liberia is just reeling from years of war. Drugs poor in our country. People came there from outside. They sold drugs to our people. They still, transacting with drugs and stuff like that. And it's causing serious problems for our country. Young people have resorted to taking drugs because of different reasons. It's pathetic to see a country, especially its young people, being drawn to drugs and, addicted to drugs. It's not their fault because the whole drug thing is an international conspiracy. These drugs come from somewhere. Somebody somewhere is making billions, if not trillions of dollars. So you have to understand that, people need to work with their families, their loved ones. It's an addiction, is an illness. We have to, find ways to, meet the needs of our young people who are drug addicted, find place for them for counseling and, to change their whole mindset about the drug thing. But it's a very sorrowful state of affairs. It's a global issue. It's a very big global issue that even the UN itself is confronting. So Liberia is just a small, minute part of that global concern. But we as a country need to do a lot in meeting, the needs of our people. And, so I'm sure the government, through the regulatory agencies are doing everything to make sure they fight drugs and fight it from its source, in fact, because these things come from outside the country.
All right, Mr. Duopu, we are getting some comments on Facebook, and I want to read a few of them. So, Johnson Chile talk about the plan by the Ministry of Education to make students who fail the West African exam to repeat 12th grade. He compares that you pass, like a nursing student who passed the school but failed the nursing board, being asked to repeat the program. He said, according to Mr. Chile, that is wrong. Why is the government doing that?
Well, that's I don't think that's a policy of the national government. Maybe somebody just suggesting that, but that's I've not read that as a policy. I've not read that as a policy. But this is my personal view, because we were in our country, we took national exams. We know, some of our friends didn't make it and stuff like that. But, when you the national exam is a public test. Anybody can fail that national exam, but people need to make some concerted effort to make sure that kids, family members, and friends do their best on those exams. Liberia is lagging behind, compared to other countries in the sub-region, because those exams are regional. It's not just a Liberian exam. It reflects badly on our country that, most of the people who take the exams in our country, are failing, So, they'll go to the root cause of that. It has to do with multiple issues, people living rough at home, people not getting the basic necessities, people, their family situation. But let's leave that alone. And for me personally, I believe that if a person fails the national exam but passes their school, regular curriculum, that person should be allowed to graduate. But that person should also, be compelled to sit those exams and make sure that person passes those subjects that they fail in before they gain admission to the university. And those who make extraordinary pass in those exams should be given, automatic admission to the university. So that should serve as an incentive. And you got to put some, some measures into place that will motivate people to do their best on the exams. Because those exams are a direct reflection of, our country's education, state of the affairs of our country's education. So people got to do their best in our exams, So that's my own personal, feeling about those exams. But I don't think that is a policy of the Ministry of Education that if you fail the national exam, you should repeat the 12th grade. I don't think that's a policy. I've not read anything, in that regard.
One more question on Facebook before Danielle comes in. Siafa Windows Senior, we're talking about the drug issue. So Siafa is saying, so what is the government doing to minimize the free flow of drugs into the country?
Well, I was in Liberia a couple of weeks ago. There have been a lot of arrests by the Drug Enforcement Agency, a lot of arrests by other security forces at the border and places of entry. These drugs come from somewhere. That's why the hard drugs, like cocaine, and heroin and stuff like that. Liberians don't do those drugs. We don't manufacture those drugs. I know about marijuana that comes from, that can be grown in Liberia. But talk about cocaine, heroin, and other, methamphetamine and other hard drugs that are pouring into the country. Those things come from somewhere. And we have to talk about that from the source. We have to work with international agencies, we have to work with Interpol, foreign governments to make sure that they make sure that those places where those drugs come from, the point of departure, they can put a stem to the departure of those drugs from those areas. So I think our government should also be vigilant, security forces, and we can also fight those drugs, through the community. The community got to be vigilant because you fight crime through community action. So those communities got to be vigilant in fighting those drugs. So I think that the government is determined, to fight, the proliferation of hard drugs in our country.
Okay. So, Mr. Duopu, at the beginning of the year, we heard from President Weah in his State of the Nation address, and he mentioned dual citizenship. What can you say is the feeling on the ground about dual citizenship? What is the average citizen saying about dual citizenship?
Well, I think our people are open to dual citizenship. I mean, we've had foreigners in our country from the time Liberia became a country, or before that. We've had people from other countries that have come to Liberia, that have lived there for years, that have kids there, grandkids. Even Liberians living in the diaspora, their kids. There should be a way that those kids can go back and contribute to the development of that country, because their parents come from that country. Excuse me. If I have my kids who were born in the U.S., who are American citizens, and they cannot have access to my heritage because there's a constitutional prohibition on dual citizenship, what does that say to my kids? How can I go back? How can I see their grandparents? How can I see where my father and mother come from? So dual citizenship is a very important, national priority for the president. He believes that every Liberian who, should be open to have multiple citizenship, but it doesn't deny of the Liberian citizenship. Because as you are aware, during the war, people left the country. They sought refugee status in other countries. They sought citizenship in other countries. It was not based on their own volition. Those were situations where you found yourself and your children should not suffer because of that. You should not suffer because you sought other citizenship to better your condition. And those folks send millions and millions of dollars to Liberia that have strengthened the economy over the years. So how can you deny me, who lives in America, dual citizenship, and you want my money? You can't deny me citizenship and want my money. It doesn't work that way. It's counterintuitive. So I think the president's desire to have dual citizenship, and to amend the Constitution, I think it's a bold move. It's bold.
All right. Before Daniel continues, there's another question on Facebook. Mr. Dave Jassy, Mr. Duopu, he says you are speaking constantly well of the president's effort. That's an indication that the president is working hard and there is confidence in his abilities. But that is just a segment of the government. What can you say about other branches of government as well as the private sector? So you are talking about the president. What's about the other branches of government? And what's about the private sector? What do you have to say about that? That's the question from Dave.
Well, I'm talking about the president because the president is the leader of the country. If the president is determined to move in a particular direction, I think everybody should follow. Well, when it comes to the legislature, they have a new leadership. You know that over the years, the legislature have been a kind of rubber stamp entity. And now they have, a leadership that is in place that, is aware of their constitutional responsibility of checks and balances. The judiciary is functioning well. People are going to court now to settle their disputes. People are not using, physical violence. People are not using machetes and clubs and cutlasses. When there's an issue, there's the judicial process is on course. People, when they are arrested, there's a presumption of innocence. There's a due process of law, and there's different, processes that you can, seek redress through the process of going to higher courts. So those processes are in place. Our governance system is intact. We are working on it. It's not perfect, but there's a coordination in government right now. People are, government is open. People can, the press is open. They can, say anything they want to say, but just what's in the framework of the law. You can criticize the president. There's not a single journalist in jail. There's not a single political prisoner. So the country is in a very good place. The country is moving in a very good way, in a very good direction. So if you can have these kind of things going on, there's a potential for investors to come, potential for the country to gain its rightful place in the community of nations. Because once you have those kind of system in place, you can have people coming in the country to invest, create jobs, opportunities for our people. The overriding thing now, the president concern is the creation of jobs. That's the overarching thing that on his mind every day is the creation of jobs to make sure that people are working. Because you have a society that is working, people are less likely to think about evil things. You know, they are concerned about their future, their children's future, and the future of the country. So those are things that, you know, the president is working on. And every sector of government should make sure that they are in sync to that, because he's make it clear in every public pronouncement that he expects his government officials not to get involved in corruption, not to get involved in any kind of shenanigans, because they'll be dealt with the full weight of the law. So those are very important policy statements that he's making.
Yes, good news.
Okay. Mr. Duopu, what can you tell us the people on the ground are saying about a possible war crimes court?
Well, I mean, you know, I think when it comes to a war crime court, there are several factors that one has to take into consideration. Because the situation with Charleston and other people, Charleston's situation was about Sierra Leone. Mm-hmm. Nobody has been indicted about war crimes in Liberia, although people committed war crimes. And it will take very international support. The very international people who, you know, I mean, people think that they are supportive of this venture. They are not. You know, they want us to use the South African model. You know, restorative justice is the way to go. If people want to pursue people who they thought were, you know, I mean, committed crimes, they can seek that through, you know, the criminal justice system. I don't think there's a statute of limitation on pursuing justice for a loved one or a friend who was killed or, you know, ill-treated during the war, you know? So I think personally, it's not a government position. But I think restorative justice is the way to go. Because everybody was affected during the war.
Right.
Every inch of that country was battered during the war. Me personally, I don't got to go through that. People know my story. But that is not important to this discussion right now. It's not about me. But the country as a whole needs that restorative justice, that people can heal, there was a truth and reconciliation process, people came, they admitted whatever they did. You know, I mean, if somebody thinks that they should pursue it legally, the courts are there. And there should be due process. There should be, you know, the system where people can go to the court and seek justice.
But what is the president's or the government position when it comes to war crime courts or the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee?
Yeah, I mean, the president is committed to some kind of, you know, judicial settlement, you know, but, you know, I mean, for me personally, you know, I think that restorative justice is the way to go. If I was advising the president on that issue, I would tell him that restorative justice is the way to go. But, you know, I mean, I'm sure he's thinking about it. That's something that you have to really commit to. It would take real political, you know, I mean, political decision to do that. I mean, although it's a legal process, but it would take political decision to do that. You have to make sure you consult with people, you know, a wide range of people, you know, his advisors, his legal people to see, you know, because I mean, how will you establish this court? What is the parameter? You know, what is the you know, who you want to prosecute? I mean, I'm sure that there are people who need to be prosecuted, but then you have to, you know, I mean, establish a court. You have to go through a legislative process, a specific court for that purpose, you know, that to investigate, you know, war crimes in Liberia. It has to have international funding, international support to, you know, dig up all these cases. Make sure you get forensic evidence. Make sure you got rare expert witnesses that can come into attest to the crimes. So it's a whole gambit of things that, you know, that goes into place in this, that one has to consider. So, you know, that I'll just leave it at that. You know, and I think that restorative justice is the way to go.
Okay.
Okay, so you've touched on some of President Weah's infrastructural projects. We've heard about the roads to the southeast. What else do you know of that he has in store?
Well, the president has negotiated plans for the construction of a military hospital. And that will be the first time Liberia will have a military hospital. You know, that hospital will not only cater to military personnel, but their families and other people. The president is involved in road construction in the city, in the slum areas, the slum communities that are cut off, normally during the rainy season. People right within Monrovia Port are cut off in the Door community, Slipway, and other places, in the little small road projects and stuff. And the whole process of rebuilding the country will take, will take real solid plan. That was, I think the finance minister said that it would, the government is focusing on getting at least about $3.3 billion for infrastructure development. Infrastructure is very expensive. That country is shattered. That country is destroyed. Basic thing about electricity, water, top-borne water that, secure. That's part of the president's proper agenda for every citizen to drink, save water. Every citizen to have electricity. The electricity now is, kind of sporadic a little bit, but they're building the West African electrical grid that's coming from Ivory Coast, coming towards, it's in part of Liberia right now. I've talked to friends who are working on those projects, and they say, in the next couple of months, most of northern, western, and the southeastern cluster will have electricity. The president, his whole development agenda is kind of upside down from what is a conventional way that we did it for 170 years. What he's trying to do is to build the interior, because that's where the wealth is. That's where the people are. The people who the people of the country belong. They live in the interior. So if you build the country from the interior coming to Monrovia, and leaving from Monrovia going towards the interior, and you have that merging the matching of those infrastructures, that will develop the country faster. But you get focused on Monrovia and leave the outlying counties, I think that is counterintuitive for any development agenda. So the president is focused on making sure that we have our infrastructures in place. He's mandated the Minister of Public Works to draw up the country's infrastructure plan. He called on the LEC, the water and sewer people, and other people who involve in infrastructure development to come up with a plan and to move that plan, to his decks.
And Mr. Duopu, that's very important, to come up with a plan. It seems that the president is doing that backwards, having this money before even thinking about the plan. Let's talk about the loans as well. I think to be able to do these projects, the president has gone out to secure some loans, and there have been some questions raised about whether this money can actually be able to accomplish the task, and whether there are plans in place to do these things before even going out to get these loans.
Yeah, I think they work out a plan. I just listened to the public minister, and I spoke with him personally. On Mobutu Vlag, I spoke with him personally about all these plans. Look, the country has more than 11,000 kilometers of roads, and just 1,000 kilometers of roads are paved. That is a deficit of more than 10,000 kilometers of roads.
I agree.
If you just drive out of Monrovia, just 50 minutes, you will be on a deprecate road that will destroy your car, that will not move faster. And if you have infrastructure, especially road development, it will bring the country together. It will link the counties. It will create a higher volume of trade. Even intra-county trade is very, very negligible. You need to support a leave from Maryland to go to Cape Mount to Transact. You need to put a leave from Cape Mount to go to Nima to Transact. You need to put a leave from Nima to go to Bapulu or River G to Transact. Except you got roads. And that transaction time has to be cut short. If you don't have roads, it makes transaction difficult. So that's the kind of thing that... Go ahead.
No, I agree about that. But is the money that he got, is it enough to do the kind of work?
The money would not be enough. I mean, ask even the U.S. government, ask the French government, the Germans, money would not be enough. But the little you have to make it tangible. You have to make it intentional. You got to set the priorities and see where that money goes and what it generates. So the money will not be enough. Liberia has a bad credit rating. Liberia is not in the top tier of highly, credited nations. Liberia is poor. Liberia is reeling from years and decades of war and, social neglect. So the president is making those moves to make sure that, the country can get that money and the infrastructure that he prioritizes, the money can go directly to the infrastructures to make sure that, the worth of that money is realized by the people. Money will not be enough. When Liberia was rich after the Second World War, read books by Claude Ake. Liberia experienced global art development. Liberia was on par with many developed countries today. Liberia gross domestic product or gross national product was very high. Those items that we are buying for very expensive prices today was very cheap. Our iron ore was selling, our rubber was selling, other natural resources were selling, but now the country is backward. So it will take time. It will take a leadership that will bring the country back in the fold of nations that can be respected again. That's the plan.
Right, but are those plans in place, or are we putting the cart before the horse?
Those plans are in place right now. The president and his staff are working diligently to put those plans in place. So, whatever move that he makes sure that there's a plan. He asks his official, where's the plan? How can we achieve this plan? So, those are tangible ways to lead. You can lead you can lead from the, like an armchair intellectual. You have to be engaged. That way the president is always in the field. When it comes to, breaking grounds for things, he's there. He's in his work clothes. He's involved in cleaning the city. He led the cleanup of the city a few months ago. He was very intentional in making sure that Maria is clean. So he gets in his work clothes and goes to, very, very squalid areas and make sure that he tells the people that they need to clean their surroundings. That's leadership. Right there, that's leadership.
If you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing Liberians Returning Home. Our guest is Mr. Mansfield Duopu. He's on the line with us from the city of Minnesota. He's just returned to Liberia. He got a job already with the government. He's back to get some more clothes and wrap up things to return to Liberia. We have some questions and comments on Facebook, Mr. Duopu. This one is from Mr. Banker Mafole. He said, I appreciate your honesty of the ongoing situation in Liberia. Will you agree that the health services in Liberia are dilapidated? What investments are you aware of that has recently begun to show fruits that this situation is being remedied both personally and nationally? Do you know of any investment in?
Yeah, the person who wrote that comment is right. Our healthcare delivery system is down. Is down because of years and decades of neglect. We don't have anything in our hospitals. People die from curable diseases. That's appalling. That's very unethical. And I think that with the new budget that the president submitted in the recast budget, a lot of money that is going in the healthcare system at the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. The president is encouraging our international partners to come. As you're aware, Liberia experienced Ebola in 2014 that also decimated the healthcare delivery system. The healthcare delivery system is still reeling from the devastation from Ebola. And other diseases that are also posing threats to the healthcare delivery system. Diseases of many kinds. We need, equipment in our hospitals, in our clinics. We need very trained doctors. The president is reaching out to, foreign countries, international help to train our doctors, nurses, and other, healthcare delivery officers. So it's a whole host of issues that the country is dealing with. It's not in health, education, public sector, development, infrastructure. It's a whole gamut of issues. So that you have to make sure that you get the money and you can put the money where, the priority is. And health is one of the number one priority in this political agenda, because when our people are not healthy, they won't go to work, and it will affect the economy, it will affect the country. So the president is making sure that, the healthcare delivery system is on par, at least with countries in the sub-region. Because most of the time people leave to go to Sierra Leone or Ghana, South Africa, and maybe India, people who can afford it. Well, when I go to hospital in Liberia, one government official will stay in Liberia and go to the hospital there And it all depends on the healthcare delivery system. Once you can have trained doctors, good equipment, I mean, you have a very good healthcare delivery system.
Okay, Mr. Duopu, just to take it back a little, I know we've talked on politics quite a bit, but the topic of this show is returning home. So what recommendations do you have for other Liberians who want to return home? You know, who say they don't even know where to begin, where to start from? What's your recommendation to them?
Well, I mean, I just want to recommend that you make sure you know what you are getting into, because coming from, such an affluent, quote unquote, I mean, opulence, and going to a country that lacks, basic, amenities, like safe drinking water, like electricity, like, I mean, transportation and other things that you are used to here. I mean, you got to know what you're getting into. So it depends on the individual. I'm not going to give any prescription to anybody as to what one needs to do. But you need to make the right decision and make sure the timing is right. I mean, you got to make sure you have everything that will make your being there comfortable. Make sure you have a nice place to live. Have transportation. You have, I mean, good amount of food supply, and you have a little, steady stream of cash that will keep you afloat. But if you are going there and you are thinking that, maybe you have friends or relatives who will take care of you, well, those welcome are short-lived, and you will get a shock of your life, like any place, you can't be stringing up alone. So you got to make sure you know what's up, and you go there and, you find your bearing, and, you make, whatever reason why you are going there for either, business, or you want to see family members, or you just want to visit. I mean, it depends on the individual. So I'm not going to give anybody any, there's no rule of thumb as to what you need to, have that cuts across everybody. Everybody's situation is different. You have to measure your coat according to your measurement. Cut your coat according to your measurement, like you say.
Oh, well, that's not very encouraging, Mr. Duopu, but...
No, that's not encouraging, but that's being practical, I mean, okay. I can't fool anybody to say it's rosy. I mean, you're living from one country that you are used to, just flicking your television, and, you just put your food in microwave, and, other people have that in Liberia. But, it just depends on the individual. I mean, for me, it took me, a couple of weeks or months to get situated. I had to make some adjustments. It wasn't pleasant, but hey, that's the situation I want to be in, so I had to make adjustments. So it depends on how fast the person wants to make an adjustment. Or, I mean, it depends. It just depends, Mr. Jaya.
Okay. Well, most of the time people return on their own, and based on your own situation. But is the government or any group in Liberia making any intentional effort to really recruit Liberians from in the diaspora? Like young people, very young people, like my co-host. I don't mean to put you on the front page, but these are people young that are, accomplished professionally. What are the intentional steps that the government is taking to recruit them, besides people just going on their own?
Well, I mean, to work for the government, it has to be based on the person's, intention. I mean, although government can make some strides in recruiting, because there's a big brain drain in the country. I mean, we need professionals, especially in technical areas. Area of nursing, we need doctors, we need, people who will bring some industries, But there was a executive, there was a program at the civil service, I mean, it is called SES, Senior Executive Service, that it was a collaborative effort between Liberian government and some international partners. I'm not sure if that program is still into place, but it was also intended to, to show up the brain drain of the country. As you're aware, the country is reeling from years and decades of, people leaving, and very, 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 very smart people left the country, and right now the country's educational system is derelict, and we need people like your co-host to come there and see what she can do. I mean, she got to make some sacrifice. It will be bread and butter, I mean, nobody will lay the red carpet, but you have to come there and intentionally make some sacrifice. Then people will see your work. and people see that you are very, very, very interested in being there and working with them and for them. But staying in America and say that people should, recruit you, I don't see it happening very, very soon. You have to get there and see what you can do in the private or public sector to make your intentions felt.
I hope it happens very soon so that we can create some diaspora office. I know under President Salif, it was in the work when now Senator Community Wizard was in charge of that, so that we can have people, to liaise and be able to tap some talents. But we have a few questions on Facebook. We are almost about to draw down the curtains. But there's this issue of corruption in Liberia that I have many comments on the issue of corruption. And then there is another question that talk about, it starts with auditing the government that you took over from. Are there steps to audit the Salif government? Because, this corruption, declaring assets, the president's jet plane and all those kind of things people are hinting that there are some form of corruption that may be also creeping.
You mean, the plane, let me deal with the plane issue. That plane issue has been settled. The plane belongs to the president's friend. Like any good friend, you want to borrow or lend a friend who's in need, maybe a jacket, your shoes, or whatever the friend needs. The president needed a plane, and the president's friend borrowed him the plane. The plane has since returned to its owner. The plane doesn't belong to the president. The plane belongs to a friend of the president. So there's no quid pro quo there. I heard one saying that the friend of the president is involved with, building roads and all that stuff. Well, that might be his line of business, but there has never been any proof that there's a quid pro quo between getting a plane and a contract to build roads.
Okay.
Everybody who have tendered a bid to build roads, it goes through the procurement process, and the person who brings the best proposal wins the bid. It's something that's done internationally.
All right.
Let's come back to corruption.
Okay.
The president has made it very clear, in no uncertain terms, that he will entertain any form of corruption. He has made it clear that corruption, unlike the previous government that have, made corruption, they fight against corruption a lip service, this president has made it very clear that any attempt for anybody to get involved in any corrupt practices, that person will be dealt with the full extent of the law. Mm-hmm. There are corruption cases that are going through the court process. Those cases are being adjudicated. And, the justice system needs to work very hard because the president cannot go around looking for cases.
Exactly.
Those cases got to come to the court. And those cases got to be adjudicated, and the due process of law must be followed. So that's the process. What else did you ask about?
On the audit. Because if
audit is a process. It's a process. It's not something that you do for political purposes. It's almost like wish hunt. You do it methodically, you do it professionally, you make sure that you have every, person who is being audited come and make their own statement. Because if you're auditing somebody, the person is almost like a judicial process. The person has to make their own statement. How did this thing go wrong? What was the audit procedure? What was the accounting procedure you had in place? You can get audit somebody with other persons, being involved in the process itself. It's almost like a wish hunt. So the president, I'm sure that the president constituted a committee to deal with a lot of other the issues of those who were involved in the no-car thing. That committee has reported to the president, and the president has taken that under advisement, and he is sharing out with the appropriate agency of government to find the right approach to move forward with whatever prosecution, whatever thing they want to do with it. But I'm sure there will be prosecution in that process. So those are things that a responsible government would do, not just going and try to wish hunt people who you succeeded because of political reason. No. If anybody is found guilty of any impropriety, that person will face the full weight of the law. So that's how he's going by it. He's not going to get involved in, politicizing, audit reports.
Thank you. Go ahead. Okay, we are about to close. I will let my co-host, if you have any final question.
Well, no final questions for you, Mr. Duopu, but we do wish you the best. And we hope that you do continue in your mission with a clear heart and with the people's best intentions at heart. So we just want to tell you thank you in advance, and we, wish you well in your future endeavors.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm sorry that we had some little technical glitch, prior to my coming on. But I hope, I didn't disappoint you or your audience. I hope I was very clear and succinct. I hope I made a case for this president and his proper agenda. And there are a lot of, issues of the proper agenda. People have tried to use it as a moniker. But it's a policy that is geared towards alleviating poverty, It's geared towards bridging the income gap. It's geared towards bridging the economic inequality of our country. And we are blessed with a president who is committed to the proper agenda and who have lived poverty and who is making concrete effort in making sure that our people, the people who that country belongs to, are once in their lifetime going to enjoy the fruit of their labor. Those in the southeast, those in Bapolu, those in the far-flung counties who are being cut off from the mainstream, who the Monrovia political elites have marginalized over the years, have denigrated, have subjugated, will once again come back in the political fold and enjoy their country, enjoy the resources of their country, and see a leadership that is practical, that is within their grasp, that they can reach, that is accommodating in making sure that our people's lives are transformed for the betterment of the country. Thank you very much.
Tao. Thank you, Mr. Duopu. And we want to thank our audience, if you're watching us anywhere across the globe. Next week, we're going to continue this series of Liberians Returning Home. We're going to have a guest who returned home during right before this Salif administration, worked with the Salif administration for almost 10 years. He's now back in the United States and is working. We want to get his perspective of what made him to go home, and he's here now, and what his evaluation of what the do's and the don'ts and what suggestions he have for the new government. That guest next week will be Mr. Sebastian Moa. His work as Deputy Finance Minister, also the Managing Director of the Telecommunication Corporation. He will be here, right here on Focus on Liberia. You dare not miss that. Until then, from all of us, my co-host, Ms. Danielle Knuckles, my name is Dennis Jha. From all of us here, our guest relations manager, Mrs. Stephanie Logan Setro, our producer, Mrs. Yasendi Martin Peye. We say thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Duopu, we cannot thank you enough. Please, when you go back, probably you can take along my CV. I too need to work for this government. Until then, my name is Dennis Jha, and you are?
Danielle Knuckles.
And we say good night and God bless.